Hello, this is Brian Bizzuto. I'm a member of the PMI Agile Community of Practice, and this is my test Pachuca presentation, 20 slides, advancing 20 seconds here on our YouTube channel. This is a presentation I gave at the PMI Global Congress this summer, and I hope you guys enjoy it. What I'm really talking about is aligning the PMBOK and Agile, and how I think sometimes we all become very certain that these two, you know, bodies of knowledge or set of values are inherently incompatible, that they're two opposing forces, and ultimately you have to pick one or the other, um, and there is nothing in between. And I think unfortunately that's dwelling on these stereotypes. And just to have fun, let's take a look at those stereotypes. So PMBOK, I mean, I think there's certainly at times this perspective that there's too much paperwork, there's too many lists, there's lists of lists, and that this adds up to a process that's so cumbersome that it actually manages us as opposed to the other way around, which is how we hope that we can actually manage our own process. Whereas if we look at Agile, I think people see the exact opposite, that sometimes we're just throwing the entire process and any control out. That this is something that might work in certain projects under certain circumstances, but it's not really scalable or methodical. It's not really a professional way to deliver work and to deliver value for the customer. Unfortunately, I think both these are really just stereotypes. And if we take a closer look, what we see is the PMBOK offers us a set of processes. They're generally good practices that we can use, whereas the Agile Manifesto is a statement of value that's going to help us figure out what to prioritize at some given point in time. So first, let's take a little bit closer look at PMBOK and what that offers. I want to say it offers us a toolkit. It offers us a series of tools that we have to solve different problems. And like a toolkit, any given problem is probably not going to require every single tool. We need to apply some judgment to figure out that which is most appropriate. And that's where the spirit of Agile comes in, because it lets us weigh and prioritize based on the circumstances around us to make the best decision that's going to offer value for the customer, for the business, for whoever matters. It's focused on people. So Agile is going to offer us, the ability to decide what tools to use. Let me offer you a real example. So here's my son. That's Trevor. And this summer we got to hang out and spend the day in Boston because my wife had to go to a conference. And as you can see, we had a great time. It wasn't always that happy, but overall it was a good time. So let's take a look at the tools that I needed to spend a day in Boston with Trevor. And as you can imagine, there were quite a few. And for those of you who don't know, that little giraffe called Sophie is wonderful if you have a little kid, but I digress. My point is that there's a whole slew of tools, capabilities I had to bring. Thankfully, I didn't have to use them all, and I didn't really measure my success or plan my day that I was. To do so would, effectively to put the cart before the horse, that my processes would become a means unto itself. And I think that's where we end up with this negative stereotype of PMBOK. And how would we ever get there? And I think, unfortunately, it does happen sometimes. Let's take an example. It really comes down to systems thinking and understanding feedback loops. So let's continue with this example. So there I am, and on my day out with Trevor, I would do something, and I'd really be looking to get a reaction to understand if, that made him happy or sad or something in between. And based on that reaction, I'm going to see a result. I'm going to know if my action was appropriate, and I'm going to adjust, based on that wonderful feedback loop. But what happens if I don't see the results? Or what happens if there is no result? That's when I start to look to, well, did I do all the things possible? And that's, when late at night he's crying and my wife comes in and says, what's going on? What happened? I say, I don't know. I fed him. I changed him. I tried to rock him. I look to that list because I don't have anything else. And I think it's that not having anything else that gets us in trouble. Because if you think about it, things like adherence to standards, schedules, budgets, those are easy to measure. Things like value and outcomes aren't. So if we can't measure value and outcomes, we're going to measure our progress against things that we can measure: budget, schedule, process. And the real risk there is no matter how good our process, it's never going to be perfect. And even if it were perfect, PMBOK, Scrum, we're probably going to mess it up. And we should just accept that. So for those of you who disagree, to demonstrate the point, let's do a quick pop quiz. So for those of you PMPs or those of you studying to be PMPs, my question for you is, what information makes up a work breakdown structure? Now remember, with the Pachuca format, you have 20 seconds before we give you the answer. kind of write it down, say it to yourself. Okay, well, the answer is that the WBS is a deliverable-oriented hierarchical decomposition of work. It does not include a schedule, it does not include resource allocations, and it does not include tasks. What I usually find when talking with traditional project managers is what they call a WBS is more likely a task list or schedule. It's just one example of, I think, a lot of times where this methodical process is misapplied because we don't necessarily always understand it. So if we take a step back, PMBOK is giving us tools. It's giving us the ability to execute with rigor consistently. Whereas Agile is, focusing us on delivering value. It's empowering people and it's helping us get those feedback loops that are so important. And to give you an example, one example I do enjoy is the America's Cup, which is known as the America's Cup because the United States of America won for 180 years, roughly. Finally, they've lost that edge, and actually New Zealand has now managed to win two successive ones, 95 and 2000, with a boat called Black Magic, as you can see here. What's most interesting is how they made Black Magic, because they actually built two boats. Then they spent 6 months racing them, where they'd use one as a control and the other to test out a modification. If that modification made the boat faster, it was incorporated into the design. They didn't really know where they were going, but they'd put together a plan to methodically be agile, which I think is wonderful. And as you can see, the results were actually quite outstanding. So with that, I'd like to thank you. Here you can see the link to the PMI Agile Community of Practice. You can also see us on the PMI website, and bigvisible.com is the website of my employer. Thanks, and hopefully we'll have some more content out for you guys soon. Bye.